My rules, big moves. Y'all heavy on the tweeting. I'll disappear a whole season like, who said they looking for me? I'ma make you wait for it. Count down for me. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You or a Black woman you know may be entitled to compensation if you've been labeled aggressive, mean, bitchy, a bully, or told that you can't stay in your lane by someone because you are doing your job or just breathing. If so, call 1-800-THEY-BIG-MAD. That's 1-800-THEY-BIG-MAD. That is not a real number. Do not call it, please. Now, but for real, think of all the times that you have stood in your power in your field or being the boss because it was your job, and someone in their mediocre ways decided that you were a derogatory name, like a bully. When if you weren't a minority woman, you would have been a maverick, a true leader, a trendsetter, a boss, big B. This episode is extremely information heavy. The research here is so that our co-conspirators, disruptors, and allies have a great base to understand how microaggressions harm us on a daily basis. And the research is here for us so that we can politely point people who use microaggressions to this episode so they can hear where to find the research and do their own heavy intellectual lifting. Now, as I've said before, I'm Dr. Ajax, and welcome back to Hold My Heels, the Power of Unapologetic Living podcast. Today's episode will dissect the stereotype of angry Black woman. This is the second part of the 4-part series on stereotype threat. Last week, we discussed the superwoman stereotype. We still have the sapphire and mammy stereotypes to explore. So truly hold your heels this time because it is going to be powerful. I want you to think back to a time you were told that you needed to play the game, be nicer, play well with others, show them that you were friendly, or exhibit more soft skills to make others more comfortable. Now I want you to understand that this is a microaggression and invalidates the humanness of a Black woman. I'm in no means saying that we shouldn't or we don't use soft skills or that you shouldn't be a kind person or a nice person. Notice, I said kind first because I don't believe we should ever be nice. We should always be kind. But we'll discuss that a little later. I want to use this episode to break down the impact of this particular stereotype, especially the physical and mental ramifications that accompany these microaggressions. As many of you know, and if you don't know, let me introduce myself. I am a Black feminist who fully believes that until the world does right by Black women, everything you even think about gonna fail. Envision both Whoopi and Fantasia pointing at you. I believe that Black women are all too frequently required to heal spaces and are called on to be saviors in hard spots and then hand slapped for stepping into their greatness. See the theories on glass cliffs and concrete ceilings. Black women are so frequently used for their gumption until that gumption becomes audacity in somebody else's mind. Then we are angry and uncontrollable. I am not a dog, a horse, or any other thing you can control. God gave me free will just like he gave everybody else. He also gave me the intelligence to know you better stop playing in my face immediately and expeditiously. And that unless I tell you that you're playing in my face, you won't know and you won't stop. This is where I believe the stereotype of angry Black woman stems from. A Black woman living and working in her power can be scary because how dare you show up in your fullness? So let's get some definitions out of the way. If you can't tell, I love building a shared language. It's my love language. So, as we previously talked about stereotype threat, which is a psychological strain experienced when an individual is in a situation that could confirm a negative stereotype about their social group. If you don't know what a microaggression is, it is an everyday verbal, nonverbal, or environmental slight, snub, or insult, whether intentional or unintentional. Because sometimes who you are at rest, a phrase borrowed from one of my favorites, will ultimately allow you to communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative prejudicial slights and insults towards another group, but especially underrepresented groups. And unfortunately, microaggressions can manifest verbally through demeaning language, non-verbally via dismissive gestures or expressions, or environmentally through discriminatory practices embedded within societal and institutional structures. Remember how institutions uphold racist practice through structural guidelines and are the scaffolds of systemic racism? If not, please go back to episode 1. Now, remember, a system can't run if it doesn't have scaffolding in place. The impact of these microaggressions extends beyond immediate emotional distress, contributing to the long-term mental and physical health issues due to the ongoing stress and marginalization experienced by the target individuals. So while people do these microaggressions and they think that, they just have a very immediate impact, they actually maintain long-term effects with people who have to deal with them every day. This was highlighted in the article, What to Know About Microaggressions from Medical News Today, where they provided an in-depth look at microaggressions, a concept who was coined by psychiatrist Dr. Chester M. Pierce in the 70s to specifically describe the subtle, often unintentional verbal and nonverbal insults directed primarily at African Americans. So microaggressions isn't a snowflake issue. It's something that's been around for a very long time and was finally given a name not too long ago. Now, psychologist Daryl Wing Sue later broadened the definition to include a wide range of subtle derogatory messages aimed at marginalized groups based on race, gender, sexual orientation, and disability, because we know that when it comes to the racist Olympics, everyone can catch them hands. So he ended up putting microaggressions into 3 categories: microassaults, microinsults, and microinvalidations. So a microinsult is when a person intentionally behaves in a discriminatory way while not intending to be offensive. They tell a joke, they say a little thing, and it's not meant to harm you. It's just funny. It's just something that's funny to them. They typically will not repeat it if you ask them to. Microinsults, these are comments or actions that are unintentionally discriminatory, but they feel like they're really discriminatory. So if you've ever been told, "You're so well spoken, man, you're articulate," that's a microinsult. And a microinvalidation is when a person's comment invalidates or undermines your experience as a marginalized group. An example of being told that, Black people weren't the only people who were slaves. Or if you're in the office and somebody says something like, "Oh, he does that to everybody." You just have to understand that's who that person is. These microaggressions highlight the crucial need for greater awareness and proactive educational efforts to address and mitigate the discriminatory foundations of microaggressions, fostering a more inclusive and respectful environment. Because that is the goal here. The goal is not to make people feel ashamed or to make people feel bad. It's for people to understand what happens in day-to-day interactions and how it impacts everybody in the situation. So this isn't to harm anybody. It's just to highlight that we could all do a better job of understanding the other. Now, I want to highlight a few of my favorite microaggressions that are used in order to create the angry Black woman persona. Assuming aggressiveness. You're in a meeting, somebody says something that's disrespectful, you respond back in kind, and they say, "Oh, you don't have to be so defensive," or you're yelling, or, "Oh my gosh, relax." Or that leads us into the dismissal of emotional responses. It's not that serious. Like, why can't you take a joke? Or when they stereotype us in social interactions. "Oh my gosh, you're so sassy. You're always so loud, girl. I just love how you're just so rambunctious." Or they're surprised that you're a professional. Have you ever been told, "You don't act like other Black women," or "I'm really surprised that you knew that"? Or my absolute favorite is undermining your authority. They do things to make it seem like you either don't know how to do your job, or that you doing your job is all because of your ego or an emotional response to something, and it's not because it's best practice or it's what actually should happen. Now, we've talked about these microaggressions, and we've talked about how they're used on a consistent basis in spaces. Now I want to talk to you about how they're presented most likely. How many of you have been told to form relationships with people so they won't think these ways about you, or they won't commit these microaggressions? Let's dissect what that really means. And I want you to determine if as an expression of structural racism, or if it's just people being people, or if it's, just me and my feelings. So if you've been told to build relationships or hone your soft skills, this is what people are actually saying to you. Building relationships. That is creating a network of mutually beneficial relationships that foster trust, cooperation, and collaboration. And soft skills are personality traits and behaviors that determine one's relationship with others and are critical for professional success. Common soft skills include communication, teamwork, problem solving, time management, critical thinking, decision making, organizational, and emotional intelligence. How many Black women do you know who exhibit soft skills on a daily basis? And the moment that they use those soft skills in one of those relationships that they build to hold somebody accountable, they're aggressive. They're a bully. They don't know how to stay in their place. They don't know how to listen. They aren't collaborative. But yet it says that in order to exhibit soft skills, you have to do so many things to lead major projects in order to lead other people. But I digress. So you've been told to build relationships. You've been told to hone your soft skills. So you do these things, right? You're a high achieving person. You're using all these skills to your advantage. And then no matter what you do, somebody still says you're mean. And so you sit down with somebody and they say, you know, it wasn't what you said, it was how you said it. Your tone was mean, or your demeanor wasn't inviting, or your facial expressions made people uncomfortable, or your body language was a problem. You looked angry. And you have these thoughts of like, I spoke in a normal tone, I didn't raise my voice, I wasn't sarcastic. You were firm, but what you didn't do was you didn't say, laugh out loud after you said something, or you didn't say, is that okay with you? You didn't ask for approval. And so typically that comes off as you being aggressive or angry. So now that you're an angry Black woman, because you actually exhibited soft skills and you've challenged those relationships, how did that make you feel? Did it make you feel like those relationships you built were actually built on trust and cooperation and collaboration? Or did it make you feel like those relationships were built on you doing what you're supposed to do that's socially acceptable as a Black woman, and we'll get along just fine? It's kind of like one of those things where it's like soft skills for you, but not soft skills for others. Now, my favorite thing to be told is that I should be nicer to people. People I've been nice to, or people that I've had very little interactions with who for some reason think that I'm not nice. So I always remind people that I'm not going to be fake. And if there's a situation where it calls for me to hold somebody accountable, or it calls for me to ask a question that is not going to make people feel like they made the best decision, but it's me genuinely being concerned or asking so that I can gain knowledge, I'm going to do that. I am kind 93% of the time. Now, what's the difference, you ask? Nice is the act of being pleasant, agreeable, and socially appropriate. Do you hear that word? Socially appropriate. Who creates social norms? Exactly. This, involves following social norms and expectations. It's how you behave. So being nice is how you behave. Kind is the act of showing compassion, generosity, and a sincere desire to improve someone else's well-being. Kindness is who you are at rest. It is who you are when you're getting nothing out of it. It is who you are when you see somebody fall down the stairs and you run to them and you help them up. Now, if it's one of my best friends, I'm gonna giggle a little bit because that's just who we are, but I'm gonna help you up. A nice person will typically be like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Oh yeah, I saw you with all that stuff in your hands, but I just thought you had it. And then they walk off and they talk about you to everybody. And so everybody in the building knows you done fell down the stairs with all the stuff in your hand. And a kind person would have offered to help you before you fell. So Thomas Plant, because I like to tell you where I got information from because I love receipts. I'm like CVS. He is a psychology professor and a faculty scholar with the McCullough Center for Applied Ethics at Santa Clara University. He highlights the distinct aspects of kindness and niceness. And I think we need to spend a little bit of time here so that people understand when I say I'm not a nice person, I'm a kind person, they fully understand where I'm coming from, because I've tweeted this out before and I just want y'all to know this is truly what I mean. He describes kindness as proactive and care-oriented, emphasizing that it generally demands more effort and time due to its focus on genuinely helping others. And this contrast, now he used the word contrast with niceness, because he characterizes this as reactive and I-oriented. Think of those nice, nasty people who seem like they're real nice, but they'll be real mean to you in the right situations, because this involves minimal effort and revolves around the individual's desire to be liked. And I know that you know, and you've probably been told, everybody ain't gonna like you. And that's okay. And the reason it's okay is because if everybody likes you, it means that you stand for absolutely nothing. It means that you will bend, twist, and turn to fit everybody's expectation. And we can't do that. Now, Plant also critiques niceness for its potential superficiality, attributing this to its roots in people-pleasing and notions of ignorance, which limits its ability to create a meaningful impact. If I am only being nice to you so I can get something out of it, then that means I don't really care. So I'm going to give you an example that is kind of real world. You're at the bar, you're sitting there alone. A guy walks up and he offers you a drink. And you say, "Oh, no, thank you, I appreciate it." And he says, "Well, I was trying to give you a drink to show you I was a nice guy." And you're like, "Well, now you're not being a nice guy because I said I didn't want the drink and you're still standing here." Now, let's say that somebody else comes up and says, "Hey, I notice that you're having an issue right now. Do you want me to stand here and like hang out with you for a little bit?" And they ask you for absolutely nothing. That is them being kind. They saw that you needed support and help. They stepped in and they offered that. And they didn't expect anything, nothing at all. So that's your real life example. Now, despite popular belief, I believe most people are genuine in trying to build relationships. I do not assume positive intent, because everybody does not come into every situation being positive or there for positivity. I also believe that everybody tries to exhibit soft skills. Some people just aren't as good at them as others. And remember, soft skills aren't about, smiling and laughing and dancing. It's about hard work, communication, knowing how to problem solve, knowing how to think critically. It's about being a solutions person in a world that is always on fire. So I want to highlight how this impacts Black women who are living in their soft skills as subject matter experts or as the leaders in their field, and how they interact at work due to the microaggressions that come from them not being nice, even though they are most likely kind. In 2008, this is research that I found for my dissertation, so it is a little bit older, but don't worry, I have recent ideas. So in 2008, Thomas and Harrison found that 56% of Black women encountered a negative race-based stereotype at work. 56%. I know from my research that 100% of the women that I interviewed had all experienced negative race-based stereotypes at work. And the reason I think that this number is probably not as high as it could be is because many times we wonder if people are being passive aggressive or committing a microaggression, or if we're coming from it with a skewed lived experience. So we try to give people the benefit of the doubt and see that they may not be doing that. I may just be thinking they are. So I followed that research up with a journal article in Applied Psychology where Daphne Motro, Jonathan Evans, and a few others discussed the effects of race at work in their research report, which is in the early 2000s, about 2013. And the research report is called Race and Reactions to Women's Expressions of Anger at Work. They examined 555 participants. And what they found is that the expressions of anger by Black women were attributed to internal factors rather than external factors, meaning that even when a Black woman has a legitimate reason to be upset or to show emotion, they were gaslit or the situation was manipulated to show that they were unjustified in their actions. So think about times you've been sitting around a table and somebody says something or does something that is completely off-putting to a Black woman. And let's say that her face shifts or her body shifts. She doesn't actually say anything, but people are like, why are you mad? Like, your face is always, scrunched up, or, she was in the meeting and she was just a lot. But she didn't say anything. She didn't do anything. She could have, she should have. The typical emotional response would have been, excuse me? Can you repeat that? What'd you say? And at worst case scenario, who are you talking to? But it is very unlikely for a Black woman to do that in most spaces. And if a Black woman has gotten to the point where she is looking at people and saying, who are you talking to? It is way out of control at this point. Like, the environment is toxic. It has been allowed to be toxic. And she has finally gotten to a point where she doesn't care anymore about maintaining those fake relationships or how it's going to come off, because she's at the point now where she's protecting her peace. So if you don't think that this is true, if you think that I'm just finding these really niche articles, Forbes wrote an article called Dear Corporate America, Stop Tone Policing Black Women. We have every right to be angry. So author Dana Brownlee discusses the significant challenges that Black women face in corporate America due to tone policing and stereotyping. And she highlights how the emotional expressions of Black women are often scrutinized more harshly than their peers. They are typically linked to them being the angry Black woman, and it always labels them as aggressive and irrational. Especially when you are showing discontent or frustration. Like, her research showed that if someone does something and you're just like, ugh, what? You're immediately angry. You're immediately hostile. You're immediately irrational. Like, there's no reason for you to act that way. But if it happened to a white woman and she started to boo-hoo cry in the meeting, everybody would say, oh, she's just so emotional right now. And you don't understand how, your words hurt her. But nobody ever says to anybody else, your words were wrong. Your words were hurtful. Not the way that you said it, but what you actually said. Moreover, I love that transition word. As a writing teacher, moreover just makes me feel like all tingly inside. So anyway, moreover, Brownlee pointed out that double standards that Black women encounter, they're expected to compress these feelings. They're expected to take it all in, zip it up, shut up, and keep moving, because you're a strong Black woman. You are magical. You don't need to show emotion here in this job. What I suggest you start doing is, when you are slighted at work, cry. Be the first one to cry too. There's research on that. Because we know that now everybody's allowed to cry. And she who cries first is protected. Do not be assertive. Do not show leadership and say, you know what? That was uncalled for, because then you're aggressive and you're hostile. So just cry. That's our new defense mechanism. And because it allows us to stop harboring these horrible feelings inside. Now, when I talk about these horrible feelings, lots of times people think, oh, in the moment, a Black woman, you eat what the world throws at you, and then you go in your office and you either fuss or cuss or cry or whatever. Or you go to somebody who you find is a trusted person and you vent to them and you're trying to get it off your chest, but you are just flustered the rest of the day or through that interaction, because it's hurtful. It's hurtful to consistently be treated one way and not be able to have appropriate emotional responses. And there is tons of research behind how this impacts us both mentally and physically, but not enough, because lots of times Black women, what we do is we take all this in and we just keep going. I need you to stop keeping going. This, I know y'all didn't think I forgot to do this. This is where I'm going to plug therapy. Remember I asked you? I'm going to ask you every week until you tell me that you went to therapy. You found a lady to talk to and she's helping you process. And I say a lady because sometimes you need somebody who looks like you and has some experiences like you to help you navigate through how to get to them. But the mental health impacts of this are so damning. I want you to think about the number of Black women in high leadership roles have ended their lives because of how they are treated at work. We do not deserve that. You do not deserve that. You do not deserve to have to hold all of your feelings in, and you shouldn't, because it is important for you to be healthy and well at work just like everybody else. And because of the microaggressions that we are subjected to, many of us have a stronger likelihood of having depression and anxiety. And depression and anxiety is not good for anybody. It's going to make you lose your hair. It's going to make you overeat. It's going to make you have heart problems. But you don't have to believe me. But who you will believe is Kimberly Crenshaw and Patricia Hill Collins. You did not think that as a Black feminist I was going to forget them, did you? I hope not. Both of these scholars have highlighted the need for healthcare and societal interventions because we are truly being physically and mentally harmed in the workplace due to microaggressions. Now, here's how. We have increased psychological distress, which leads to heightened levels of like stress, anxiety, depression, like I said. But it also deals with impact of self-esteem and identity. Think of how many times that you've said to yourself, oh, I have imposter syndrome. No, boo, you don't. What you have is an eroding of your personal identity because you're being asked to code switch every day, all day long. And you're being asked to suck up your feelings like you are a robot. Many Black women experience post-traumatic stress disorder, which they take into every relationship and every new workplace they go because things trigger them. So something that happened to you on one workplace, when it happens again, you immediately go back to that place and your body goes back into fight or flight. And that's not a place we want to be. And we have increased risk of cardiovascular disease because our blood pressure is always high, because we're always straining our heart, because we aren't letting things out. And then we have a weakened immune system because stress kills your immune system. It causes infections, diseases, autoimmune disorders. So think about the number of Black women who have thyroid issues, who have lupus, who have diabetes, who have other autoimmune disorders, and how that stress exacerbates those immune systems. And then sleep disturbances. How many Black women do you know who say they hardly ever rest? Or they're on the flip side of that where all they ever want to do is sleep. So this is why it's important for us to think about these microaggressions, to stop allowing it to play in our lives and to start to call these things out. It is totally okay for you to call out a microaggression when a microaggression happens. Now, I know for the majority of my listeners now, you have never experienced any of these things, and it is a shock to the system to hear these things being done in the workforce. I know you haven't experienced it, but lucky for you, I have. And now we're going to get to what you came here for. I really feel like this is our weekly gossip session. And I love that for us. I love that we're able to come here and you're able to listen to all of my beautiful stories. But what I would like for you to do is, if you have a lived experience you would like for me to highlight, I want you to DM me, girl, slide in them DMs. And you can do that at hold_my_heals on Instagram. DM me and follow. So very few people know that in October of 2021, I decided to switch my dissertation from the impacts of COVID-19 on EdTech, and I switched it to the impact of systemic racism and imposter syndrome on Black women in K-12 leadership. It's real personal, right? And I still defended in April of 2022. So I wrote an entire dissertation, all them chapters, in 4 months, right? Because this is how powerful it was for me. Now, I did this because I wanted my work to actually be impactful. Lots of people talk about technology and education. Lots of people talk about the stuff they do for work. But what I wanted to talk about is how I showed up at work, how other people showed up at work, how other people were being treated in those spaces. So In August of 2021, I started to be presented with the worst microaggressions of my adult life. And when they stop, I'll let y'all know. But I'm going to say this, the story is going to ruffle feathers. And I know it's going to ruffle feathers because the people that I'm going to talk about, they're going to hear this podcast and they're not listening because they actually care about growing. They're listening because what they do is they come into the job and they talk about all the stuff everybody does outside. So they talk about your Facebook post and they talk about your YouTube videos. They talk about everything you're doing instead of actually working. And I feel sorry for them because if your life is so hinged on what I'm doing, shame, because I am boring. And there are other things you could be doing, but that's a story for another day and we will talk about it. Now, mind you, if this story hits you like a hit dog, holla at me, okay? And I say this because I want you to challenge this story and I will bring you onto this next episode of the podcast and allow you to tell your story because I want people to hear both sides because they say it's 3 sides to the truth. My truth, your truth, and the real truth. And I want to see how close we can get to the real truth because maybe I misinterpreted you playing at my face, but maybe I didn't. So you've heard it. Now, I believe heavily in Clifton Strengths. Like even before I knew the Clifton Strengths, I knew that there was something going on in my mind that really helped me to navigate spaces. So my top 5 Clifton Strengths are significance, focus, futuristic, relator, and command. Basically, these strengths are like, they enable effective leadership. They allow me to be able to manage teams, to envision future directions, to execute plans with precision, to build collaborative environments, which are based on trust and deep connections. Like I like to get to know the people I'm working with. I like to get to understand where you're coming from. And then I use that in being able to see where we're supposed to go and how we're going to get there, which if you don't remember, that's real heavy on the soft skills, right? Them soft skills get me in more trouble than anything else in this world because me having soft skills equates to people's feelings being hurt. Now, if you don't know, I have a regular everyday job because as of yet, this is not sponsored by anybody. So I have to go to the people job every day. My job is to make sure that educational technology is not harmful to the students or the system. I also have to make sure that it is providing value and it is effective and efficient. So really and truly, what I do is every day I determine, is this resource good for us or is this resource bad for us? And I also, because there are not a lot of people above me to say yes or no, I am the buck. The buck stops with me. I have to say, this is not a good resource because of A, B, and C, or I have to say it is a good resource because of A, B, and C. Now, because I do not work in all the content areas, I do lean on content supervisors and specialists and managers and coordinators to talk me through, hey, somebody wants this resource. How does it work in your area? What do you use it for? How would you like for it to be used? What trainings do you provide? Who's paying for it? All of those things. So when I first started at this particular place, there is a person who every day I feel like it is their goal in life to find a product that is semi-free, where it asks for student data and we give it to them because they want to make my life miserable. That's what I believe. I am sure, though, that they are, in their mind, what they are saying is, I'm trying to find resources for my educators to use because we don't have a lot of in-house resources, which I get. Although, at the end of the day, our job is to maintain safe environments for our students. That's my job, right? So this particular person told a bunch of people that they could use this product. And I won't say the name of the product because that's not nice. And so they tell them that they can use this product. And I say, well, not exactly. Number one, the product cost. Number two, the product requires us to give it student data and it hasn't gone through this vigorous process that we have. So we have this big meeting where my boss, my boss's boss, and a bunch of other people are on, my level alike colleagues. So I come like I'm supposed to with data that shows why this resource is not necessarily needed at this point and how it is harmful in certain ways and how there's other products we could use that are sufficient for what needs to be done. So this other person comes in and she is basically like, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not true. But yet I am literally showing the data. Like I have my screen shared and I'm like, the data is right here in your face, lady. I'm not saying this. The internet didn't say it. Like I am showing you the comparison of this product to another product that we have that could do what you're asking it to do. But you're upset because I'm telling you no. I don't want to tell you no, but your boss not going to tell you no. So somebody got to tell you no. Because if people had been telling you no, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. But you know what? I'm getting worked up and I'm going to move on with the story because I promise you this lady. Okay, I'm back. So this lady is so rude to me in the meeting that I literally at one point spin around in my chair and just have my chair to the back to the camera so I can't even see her. Like I was so done. Like my boss never says a word in the meeting. Everybody else's faces are like, what is happening right now? So after the meeting, this lady goes to the other Black woman in our department and apologizes to her for my behavior. For my behavior, girl. She says to her, I'm paraphrasing because it's been a long time and I've slept a few times. Basically, she was like, I'm sorry you had to see that. You know, she's just so aggressive and, you know, I just don't know what's wrong with her. But I didn't want you to think that, you know, I felt that way about you. Felt what way about who? And this other Black woman, she just said, you know, okay, thank you, whatever. And she tells me what's happened. And I'm like, wait a minute. She apologized to you for being disrespectful to me? Girl. So then the other white woman in the space came to me and was like, oh my gosh, she was so disrespectful. We're going to say something to her. We should have said something right then. And I want you to know this is the difference between an ally and a co-conspirator or a disruptor, because a co-conspirator or a disruptor would have stopped her right there in that meeting and been like, first of all, back up. You're being disrespectful. Second of all, you don't talk to nobody else like you talking to her. And lastly, she's the subject matter expert. How are you going to argue with her and the data on the screen? But they didn't. They came to me afterwards, which I love that for them. And I hope that they've grown from there, but it didn't help in the moment. So I basically tell this young lady, hey, listen, I don't want to talk about the product no more. There's somebody else you can talk to the product about. I've told you what I had to say. I've told my boss what I had to say. It's not going to change. It's a harmful product. So she accosted me in the hallway. And I have to think to myself, okay, Amy, you're in the hallway. There's cameras everywhere. Put your hands behind your back. Don't make any sudden movements, because if anybody was to pull the camera and you wave your hand, you roll your neck, you make any body movements, they're going to be like, oh, she was aggressive to her. But I don't do that. And it is sad that I had to think about that and having an interaction with a colleague. So mind you, I've already emailed her and been like, hey, yo, listen, sis, this ain't it for us. And we're not going to see eye to eye. So here's the contact that you can talk to about this from this point forward. And so she didn't hear me. So she stops me. She's talking to me to tell me how she asked some people who are using it, who want it, if it was a good product and what I said was true. So I reiterated to her, ma'am, I have asked you to talk to somebody else about this. There is nothing more we need to say. So she goes to our supervisor and decides that she wants to have a meeting so that we can come together, because I seem to not be understanding her side. And my boss sends me an email asking me to meet with this woman. I say, okay, cool. So we meet in this office. This lady starts talking, and it's all the stuff she has already said that I have said I don't want to hear anymore because it's not true, and you're basing it off of people's wants and not what people actually need and not what's best for our students. My boss don't say a word. She just sits there. She don't say a word. So this lady says to me, well, my department chair. And I said, okay, all right. She said, well, in a department chair is, I said, ma'am, if you are going to explain to me what a department chair is, I need you to stop talking to me. So she looks at our boss, and my boss says to me, well, let her finish. Do y'all know that this girl explained to me what a department chair is? I know what a department chair is. I don't need you to tell me what a department chair is. What I can tell you is that your department chair is not the data. And the data says you didn't go through the process to get this approved, and you ain't paying for it, and they're giving student data without permission. So I'm not sure why we keep having these conversations, because the conversation should have been a long time ago is you need to stop because it's against policy. Now, mind you, I will say this. I did say something that was a little extra. So in this meeting, I say to her, you know, you're spending in some ways, what you're doing is like you're stealing, right? And so she was really offended because, you know, she felt like I called her a thief. I didn't necessarily call her a thief, y'all, but I was just saying, like, if you are spending money outside of the approval process, dang, I did call her a thief, huh? My bad. I apologize for anybody who's listening. So anywho, we are now a bunch of years later while I was at this one place of employment, and she's still doing it, y'all. I am still talking about this product that it's like, girl, why are we still having this conversation when we had this conversation 52 years ago? But now they've pulled in the big boss because I'm a liar. So she sends an email to my boss, my big boss, and all of the little bosses underneath them, and says, Amy has never told me that I can't have this product or why. And I've told y'all before, I'm like CVS with the receipts. So I don't argue. I don't go back and forth with nobody, because what we're not going to do is go back and forth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into this email system. I say per this email, and I sent it to everybody. Now, mind you, two of the small bosses went and told the big boss, oh, she's right. Amy's never said, y'all was in the meeting. Y'all was in the meeting when I told the lady with the data and the stuff. You know what? So the big boss calls me in after I've sent him the email, and he says, you were right. You know, she said that you had never told her, but then you sent the email, and, you know, we all were like, oh, she was telling the truth. And I just stared and I said, yep. Not sure what I don't really know what he wants me to do with this information right now, because I knew I wasn't lying. She knew I wasn't lying, but y'all believed her over me, and I wonder why. Anyway, so she's never told she has to apologize to me for calling me a liar. She's never told she has to apologize to me for putting in writing. I don't care what Amy says. She don't know what she doing. No way. Now, mind you, every time this woman sees me, she wants to smile in my face and wave at me like, I don't know that you were talking cash money crap about me in a foilable document. But that's neither here nor there. That's microaggressions. That's people being allowed to create spaces where they call into question your ability to do your job. And when you respond to them calling you a liar or calling you mean or being nasty to you or trying to undermine your authority, then you're the aggressive one. You're the problem, not them. Because I promise you, when they go tell on you, they crying and they making it seem like they didn't even say nothing. So that's why I say, cry first. She who cries first gets validated. But don't cry all the time, because girl, then this is gonna seem like you dramatic. And we ain't trying to be dramatic. Okay? We just using it for like a little season, a little spice, right? And sometimes you just have to look at them people in the face and be like, not today. Today is not the day to play with me. Or as the young folks say, I will have you crying, throwing up, slobbering. Okay, I will have you out here. I will catch you in the parking lot and tell you exactly how I feel about you when I don't work here anymore. Because I would never be mean to somebody in person. Because remember, I'm 93% kind. I do everything from my heart. But they said, don't push me. Because I am close to the edge. That 93%, it can drop to a 90. It can drop to a 85. Or it can go to 100. It's up to you. However you want to do this. So I ask you, in these moments, think about your mental health over somebody else's mental health. Think about your physical health over somebody else's physical health. If you're in a situation where you're consistently having to go in the bathroom and cry, girl, you need to go talk to HR. Okay. Bump all them people that you've been talking to, go straight to HR, employee relations, and be like, listen, this is a hostile work environment. File a grievance on them people. Okay. Do not give up your power because you don't want people to feel, like you're not a team player. Team players don't get bullied by other people and they get called the bully. So think about you first. And then people gonna call you an angry Black woman regardless. Like, I wish I could tell you that there's a magical formula of showing your ability to be an outstanding leader and to show amazing soft skills while also being a pushover. But even if you're a pushover, they're gonna call you something else. So be you, be free, be you, be 100% authentic, be kind to people, but don't take no mess from nobody. Okay. That don't mean going to people's job and start pushing stuff off people's desk. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when they bring those microaggressions to you, call them out immediately. And my disruptors and co-conspirators and even allies, when you see people exhibiting microaggressions, it's your job to say, no, don't do that. Because when you validate that you see something happening and that Black person doesn't feel like, am I going crazy? Is she really doing this? Is he really doing that? When they have another person there to say that's wrong, it helps them process that better. And it ultimately builds that relationship on trust and cooperation and collaboration that people say that you need in a job. Now, I want you to remember that despite everything going on around you, every step you take is a testament to your strength and your grace. Keep striding forward, hold your head up high, and never forget you've got someone to hold your heels and your mule when it's needed. I hope you conquer your world today. Until next time, stay empowered, stay you, and slay in your own personal way.
On my time. Yeah, I'ma make you pay